Hello everybody. Today we will talk about Earthly, which is, well, based on the Earthly page, this is an effortless CI/CD framework. But what does it mean exactly? Uh, if I need to simplify, then this is something like the Makefile or Make tool itself, but using a syntax which is very similar to the Docker files. So this is an example Earth file, and you can see that this is very similar to a Docker image build definition. Just we have some kind of targets which can be executed one by one. So I can say that Earthly build binaries, and actually the steps are also very similar to a Docker image build, but it uses build kit under the hood. So what is build kit? Build kit is a Docker image building daemon which tries to solve the problem of creating Docker images in a very effective and flexible way. Okay, why is it so hard to creating Docker images? So that's what we need to understand first, and next we can understand why BuildKit can do this job so very well. And after that, we can see that Earthly, why is it so good? So let's start from the Docker images. So let's say I have an empty directory, and I would like to export an existing image to this directory in OCI format with the help of this Scopeo tool, which is a CLI to move container images between different daemons and locations. So if I go to the repository, I see that, okay, I have blobs and I have some JSON descriptor, so no magic is here. And the descriptor just points me to one of the blobs, so I can check the blob itself, which is 4C, SH4C, and this is the content. So what we can see here is a lot of layers, which actually just tar files. I can about the differences. So if I add a new file to one layer, then that one new file will be part of the tar. So it's very simple, right? We can just create tar files, nothing more, and some descriptor. I have a specific descriptor here, the configuration, which is BA, so I can just try to find that one as well. BA, yes, this one. And this is what we can see when we try to check the history of the Docker image. And here we have common metadata like the environment, the entry point, and so on. So no magic. Why is it so hard? Well, there is one challenge. If I check an average Docker file, it's very easy to add the environment variables to the specific JSON file and just create a tar files, right? The problem with the that we might have run commands. So let's check the satellite, for example. This one has a npm install command, and it's very hard to predict what kind of files should be added at layer. Actually, we couldn't predict it. What we need to do is just use the previous layer and execute it in an isolated way. Well, what does it mean? Yeah, we can use Docker, for example, to execute, but we need the layer, we need to execute everything and check the differences. Okay, so that's why it's hard. The other one is that we need some powerful way to do this, because we would like to cache it just to make it easier to create the image next time without executing all of the steps what we executed earlier. And this is what BuildKit can do. So this is the BuildKit repository. This is Moby. So this is main Docker repository, and it explains why BuildKit is so good. So it can do a lot of things, but I think this is the most important, pluggable architecture, because a few other lines also just because we have pluggable architecture. So for example, you can choose how this run command will be executed. It can be runc or containerd, or you can choose where it will be executed. It can be executed locally or even in a remote BuildKit daemon. And you can choose caches, remote caches, local caches, and you can even choose the language what you use to define the image. So here we have the caches, but if I check the earth file, it means that I don't need to use Docker file. I can use any other language. So if I do just docker build x, it will use BuildKit under the hood to build the image based on a Docker file. But that's not the only one option, because BuildKit under the hood uses an abstract tree, or actually it's not so abstract because all of the steps which are supposed to be done are here. So BuildKit can do parallel builds very easily because it understands the dependencies between the different layers or different steps. And actually, BuildKit requires these steps. So Earthly is just another front end which makes it very, very easy to define all the steps what we need. Okay, why is it good with Earthly? Okay, let's check what we have here. So in it's a very common pattern that we have a Docker image with all the dependency for a CI. So in this case, this is the shell script which contains all the dependencies like Golang tools and test parsing tools and everything. But actually we use this Docker image for a lot of projects. We don't need all of them, right? But it would be so hard to define one specific image for each of the projects. But with Earthly, actually it's quite easy. So for example, this is the linting part. And in the linting part, I can just define the install. It doesn't matter because it will be cached. So when I execute it next time, they will be just cached and skipped. And after that, because this may include new files, then this will be executed. So when I executed the build binaries, Earthly, sorry, then I had multiple lines which were just skipped due to the cache. One other example is that it is very similar to the multi-stage Docker files. So, for example, I would like to create an image with all of the web stuff and binary stuff. And what I do here is just copy some stuff from earlier steps. So this multi-node web supposed to create some dist stuff which are copied to the image. And if I check the multi-node web, you can see that I copy one specific directory and do a build based with the help of Node Docker image. I don't need to have Node locally, and it will be built and saved as dist, and I can even copy it outside from the containers because everything is under the hood, is executed inside containers. And when I do it next time, it's very effective because everything is cached. And we need to talk about this cache because there are multiple levels of caches. So this magic says that if I need to execute the build sh, then a cached node modules directory will be available. But when but this line might be skipped if the previous line is cached. So we are caching all of the steps, and we can also use some external artifact cache or temporary artifact cache. And we can even use remote caches. So it's possible that with the CI image, we do some build, and here we will reuse the caches. So actually this is a BuildKit feature. So here we have some documentation, I think, about different type of, cache, that how does it work. So you can use even S3, GitHub Action Cache, or the cache information can be added to the image. So let's say I'm doing this one. So in my local cache can answer that, okay, you don't need to build these steps again because I have an image or a cache which has it. If I do all of these steps or organize all of these steps smartly enough, then I can use even a shared cache. So I can download an image and Earthly can understand that, okay, that layer in the image is exactly an output of this step with the same inputs. So I don't need to do it again. So for example, if we use this multi-node web stuff, it's possible that the CI server already built this one with exactly the same input. So if exactly the same input is used, I can organize this Earthly file in a way that instead of executing all of these one by one, because it's not in my cache and this is my first time, even the first time execution can be skipped if the cache is downloaded from somewhere and we have the information that what is required exactly for this step for this hashed directory. So another good thing is that in the Earth file I have lint. Actually, it couldn't work very well because it's not fully configured, Earthly. But it's good because it will be failed very soon. And by default, everything is running inside containers. You can see that these are cached and the command is just started. And it can fail or it can just work well. And if it fails, I have an option to, okay, let me create an immediate failure just with using the wrong command. And if I do, okay, by default, it's supposed to be failed because there is no such command in the cached container. Yeah, that's the problem. But I can use the -i, which means that when it fails, I need a container. I would like to, and I'm inside. So I have all of the tools which are installed by the previous step, and I can very easily debug what's going on. How can I fix the build? Because I have all of the, I have the environments. So that's one other handy feature of the Earthly. So it's very well documented. So there are other approaches because actually BuildKit, it's very easy to use BuildKit because the only thing what you need is just send these kind of low-level operations or requests to the BuildKit daemon. And there are other tools like Dagger, but usually they use a more complex definitions, sometimes to cover some very specific use cases. But what I like in Earthly is that it's almost like the Docker files. So without doing too much research, it's very easy to understand what's going on here. Yeah, to use advanced features like the caching, you may need to understand exactly how it should be done in the best way, but it's very easy to getting started and it works very well. So I'm planning to test it more and maybe I will share more experiences in one of the next videos.